All right, guys, welcome back after the break. I hope you're having as much fun as I am having with this poetry slam that we have to commemorate World Poetry Day, 21st of March. But I also told you that tomorrow, the 25th of March, is the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Since it was designated, the 25th of March was designated as that in 2007. It was first celebrated in 2008, and so it's done every year. It is a day to remember those who suffered and died as a consequence of the transatlantic slave trade. There's so many people who, if we have to really think about it, imagine your child goes out, or your husband goes to work, or your wife goes to work, or your daughter, or anybody of yours, and you just never see them again. So that in Africa was traumatic. So that those are the first victims of that. And then those people who were put on this brutal trip, some of them never made it. Some of them chose to jump overboard than to go into the great unknown. There's stuff that it's just fear. Our brain is so wired to sense danger when there is any unknown. And so you can imagine how traumatic that was. And then for those who made it to the other side, in this completely different world, they don't speak languages, they're brutalized and all of that. And of course, when they get there, they are the indigenous people, the Kalinago people, the Arak people who are there. And they also victims to that whole commerce and capital system that was just bent on getting profit for free, forcing labor from people for free. And so March 25th is the day when we remember all of those victims, millions, millions, millions of people. I mean, this thing lasted 400 years, more than 400 years. Can you imagine 4 centuries of going to Africa and just reaping people from their families? And then even when you were here, we were brutalized. A mother could have a baby and for whatever reason, the plantation owner could decide that they don't need that baby because another expense, and they just sell that baby away. So not even your child is yours. And so between the 16th and the 19th century, up to 17 million slaves were transported against their will from Africa to the Americas. Up to 2.4 million slaves died during the voyage. Millions more died soon after their arrival in the New World. Most of the people who were enslaved and transported came from Central and West Africa. The first people to engage in transatlantic slave trade were the Portuguese. In 1526, the Portuguese made the first slave voyage across the Atlantic Ocean to Brazil. Other Europeans followed suit. The British, the French, the Dutch, the Danes became major slave trading stations. And that's not all we know. Despite the fact that they were human beings, ship owners treated slaves, well, not slaves, they enslaved people as cargo. They shipped the slaves as quickly and as cheaply as possible. Upon arrival in the Americas, the agents sold the slaves to work on plantations as well as mines, rice fields, and domestic servants. And that atrocity hasn't been atoned for. Even up to this year, the descendants of the folks who are still benefiting from those atrocities, they refuse to even apologize for it. So we have to make sure that we can represent ourselves. And we see racism still exists, and people complain about it, they talk about it, they pretend to care. But if you don't want to be a racist, you just stop. You know, if you don't want to be a racist, spend as much money in black schools as you spend in white schools. It's as easy as that. We talk about it and we pretend like we care, but we don't care. It's a continuation of the brutalization. But black people, African people, Kalinago people, any oppressed group have to care. You have to care, and you have to take up the fight and fight for yourself, because obviously it's not going to come from outside of you. All right, so this was my contribution, and tomorrow, 25th, take a moment of silence and remember those who suffered in the transatlantic slave trade and the slavery that they were subjected to. This is Poetry Slam 2023 TDN Media Network, and we're commemorating World Poetry Day. Next up, Miss Rosalind Severin McClean. Welcome back, Rosalind.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Anthony. Yes, I'm glad to be back, to share my work with you and with the audience and everybody else. Yes,
Certainly.
I am going to read again from Oceans of Thoughts, Book 3.
You're going to read from book 3.
Yes, again, because as it's newer than the other two.
I believe I have book 1 and 2. I need to get my book 3. Huh?
Yes, you need to get Book 3,
Yes.
definitely. Yes. I'm going to read along with the thoughts of what I'm hearing, because it's a pretty big book, and there are quite several different poetries in there. But I'm going to read one called "Voice of the Voiceless." As you spoke earlier on the slavery, and also there was mention of the prejudice and racism, and of course light skin, black skin, dark skin, and all these different things that, as you said, it exists, but people pretend that it's not existent. And you could talk about I being a victim of that too. I can testify to the light skin, dark skin prejudice against me. So I am going to read Voice of the Voiceless, which is one of my newer pieces.
Looking forward.
Yes. As the galaxies spin in all its magnificence, the glorious celestial bodies intelligently orbits on time, sensitizing atmospheric change, metrical through humans. These magnetic frequencies balance scales of the mind, resonating karmic volumes through this universal voice. Hello, I am the voice of the voiceless, with unselfish wisdom, the voice of the voiceless, with spoken love, the voice of the voiceless, with wholesome courage, the voice of the voiceless, with inspired words. Hello, I am the voice of the voiceless, that is of sound character, the voice of the voiceless, that stands to defend, the voice of the voiceless, that is of good principle, the voice of the voiceless, that holds no fear. Hey, I am the voice of the voiceless, who seems terrified. I am the voice of the voiceless, who is offended. I am the voice of the voiceless, who quivers in silence. I am the voice of the voiceless, who endures inward pain. Hey, I am the voice of the voiceless, who shadows truth. I am the voice of the voiceless, who covers shame. I am the voice of the voiceless, who ceased to speak. I am the voice of the voiceless, who is not heard. As the galaxies continue to spin in all its grandeur, the competence of its power exuberate inspirational light. The natural flow of energy burst of cosmic charm. Shift the human mind in unimaginable ways. Hey, I am the voice of the voiceless, who stands on trust. I am the voice of the voiceless, who exalts respect. I am the voice of the voiceless, who exhibits chance. I am the voice of the voiceless, who stands alone. Hey, I am that voice of the voiceless, whose messages get twisted. I am that voice of the voiceless, who is misunderstood. I am that voice of the voiceless, whose reputation is challenged. I am that voice of the voiceless, who is often persecuted. Hello, I am that voice of the voiceless, who is sensitive. That voice of the voiceless, whose heart is broken. That voice of the voiceless, whose opinion matters. That voice of the voiceless, whose honesty prevails. Which voice are you? Hey, which voice are you? As the galaxies revolve in unison across the vast space, perfectly in realization, brilliantly in creation, humans wish to encompass the richness in play of cosmic harmony. Humans are unprepared in the birth of atmospheric change. Om, peace. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. The I am is such a powerful phrase.
It is. It is. I am is the word of God. I am is God. And I am is speaking from the inner self, the God within, challenging the outward. Because what happens, there is so much betrayal in families. Sisters betray sisters for favor or whatever it is. There's so much betrayal. I'm a victim of that. That inspired me to write this piece. The betrayal of family against me. And I am is the word of God.
I am is a connection to God.
I
You
am.
know, my
That's your
favorite,
inner
one of
being.
my favorite songs from Peter Tosh is
Oh, yes.
I
All
am, I
right.
am.
That's
Oh,
right. That's
definitely,
right. Yes.
definitely. I am connected to a higher being. Thank you so much, Rosalind. I really
Yes. This
appreciate
is
it.
in Oceans of Thoughts, Book 3, available on Amazon.
I remind the audience that your book, your trilogy, Oceans of Thought, very, very, it says it, thought. It's very thoughtfully written and very inspiring and different. So get your copies. Yes,